Hello, Arkansas, and welcome to this week's edition of Arkansas Money Talk, brought to you by the team of Retire Path Wealth. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio is the president of Wealth Management, Dale Colclasure, and co-founder, Mark Smalling. We've got a great show for you today. The reality is that times have changed. So the question we want to pose for you is, are you prepared to successfully navigate to and through your retirement given these changes? You're going to want to hang with us to find out everything that Dale and Mark have to share with you about this important subject. My friends, great to be back in the studio with both of you. How are you this week?
It's a good day.
Fantastic.
Good. Well, I know that this show is really inspired by the conversations that you guys are having in your office each and every week. And one of the things that I think is so paramount is the change when it comes to retirement income, right? Because previous generations had Social Security that they could definitely rely on. They had pensions for the most part. Well, pensions are oftentimes a thing of the past for most folks today. And in the absence of that, having a retirement income plan is even more crucial. So let's talk about first Social Security, because that's been in the news a whole lot. Mark, this is your area of specialty and expertise. You all help people engage in Social Security planning. And there's been several changes within just the last 10 years that a lot of folks aren't even aware of, even within the last couple months, right? So can you shed some light on those?
Right. Well, it has been in the news a lot. And there is something that happened 10 years ago, back in 2015, Deficit Reduction Act was signed into being and into law, and it actually removed some of the planning tools that we used to have. We used to be able to file and suspend, where a spouse could file and their spouse could take half of their benefit while they were, and then they could allow theirs to defer. There were restricted applications for it. All these things were there. But those have slowly phased out, and the last folks that were eligible for them have phased out. So those are no longer eligible for anybody that's out there today. So it's even more important to take into account and plan your Social Security, because there are more limited options in how we can improve it and maximize your Social Security, but we just need to make sure that we understand what that looks like.
Just because there's not as many doesn't mean they're not as important.
Yes, or that it's gotten any less confusing or less complicated, right? And it was crazy. I was actually traveling nationwide the fall of 2015, presenting specifically on Social Security at the time, and then overnight, boom, Congress signed it into law. All these changes. I mean, it was a really convoluted time for a lot of folks.
It was. Yeah. And then, of course, there's been a lot of talk about the taxes on Social Security, and we're not going to delve too much in that today, but if you don't understand how that affects you or whether it's going to help you or not, that's something that we can help assess for you too.
Well, not just that, but the access to Social Security, the system and the offices themselves has become so limited. Just in our community alone, there's 4 local communities that are losing their local Social Security office.
Wow. Yeah.
And so just access to information is in person is much harder. If you call and you try to get an appointment, you're 11 to 13 weeks out before you even get to have the appointment to start the discussion.
Right. And we should highlight, I am a stickler on this, and I know you guys are as well, that it's important for folks to understand, if you go down to the Social Security Administration, they are allowed to give you information, but they are not allowed to give you individual personalized advice based on your unique situation. The only way you're going to get that kind of personalized advice is by working with a team like Retire Path Wealth, who can run all the different combinations, computations, permutations with your specific software, right? To help people figure out the optimal time, because there's a lot of talk about maximizing Social Security benefits, but talk about why the focus should be on optimizing them.
Yes, and that's probably the most important aspect of that Social Security planning. We get asked all the time of how do I optimize, but the real question is, how do I maximize it? One other thing I'd like to point out, we have another advisor in our office who's just recently become NSSA certified, which there's only 4 of those in the state. So that's how important this is to us, is by not just the fact that Mark's been doing this as the focus for 20 years, but we're bringing the new generation along, learning the importance of this and how to optimize those things as well. Is because, again, so many times in this industry, especially with individuals that are having the conversation, we want to solve every single question in its own individual vacuum or silo and then put it into a part of a plan. And then we go, gosh, why didn't that work great? Because we didn't look at the overall system to begin with. Because the difference in how you maximize your Social Security benefit depends on what other resources you have, your anticipated longevity, your family situation, your total asset account accumulation. Again, we've just had laws that have been passed just in the last month. This big, beautiful law, or whatever the heck we're going to call this thing is yes, there are some new things that have to do with Social Security, but how it implements to each individual person is more confusing than it was before it ever started.
Right. Yep.
I can't tell you how many people I've had call and go, hey, Dale, can I stop withholding taxes now that I don't have to pay tax on my Social Security? Well, folks, that's not how this works.
Right. And so it's important to know the ins and outs. And I appreciate that you all stay on top of all this because, if you get it wrong, you could get it really wrong, right?
Well, because income planning is even now more important.
Yes.
Because to get that $6,000 tax adjustment that fits into this bill, you got to fit into this slot of income,
right?
Or it doesn't apply to you.
Yeah. Exactly right.
It's additional standard deduction that's added on top, and there's so many different variables when it comes to doing this planning, and whether you're married or single, whether you have other income sources or not.
Yep.
There's so many things to take into account. And Dale mentioned this earlier. What's your longevity in your family? How long do you think you're going to be here? So the planning and timing and figuring out when you need to take it is a very individualized process, and it is taxed differently. And now it's taxed differently on multiple levels,
right?
Not just on the bracket of how much money do I have coming in, but do I qualify for that extra standard deduction or not, or do I make too much?
Right.
Well, and the importance today of income planning is not just how much money am I going to have and am I going to run out. Is that difference is when do I turn on what source at what point? Because of the way these laws are now in place. Because some of them only last for 4 years, and then some of them are in place for 6 years, but then some of them only fit in this slot.
Right.
Well, the thing that people forget about when I get to retirement, folks, is, and again, we've talked about this before, this is the first time in your life where you get to set probably what your own tax bill is, depending on what source of income you turn on. So if taxes have always been a point of contention for you, this is one chance you have to take control over that and adjust your own outcome to where it benefits you the most. And so if we're having questions about Social Security, if we're having questions about overall income and how do these things affect me, please pick up the phone, scan the QR code, get in the office, let us help you out, and see what value we can add to your overall situation.
Wonderful. Dale, Mark, thank you so much. I know we've got a lot more to get to on today's conversation of how to navigate these changing times. But if this is resonating with you, clearly there are so many personal variables that far outweigh the math. And that's why there's no substitute for sitting down in the financial planning environment and seeing what the right Social Security claiming strategy should be for you. But you have to reach out, and you can do so by calling 866-724-3893 to schedule your very own complimentary written income plan. And as part of that, this Social Security analysis will be run for you. Or if you'd rather connect online, simply scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. We've got a lot more for you on today's show. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this.
I became a financial advisor through a referral from my financial advisor. I was leaving a career in the corporate world, basically was looking for something else to do. And he said, hey, don't you have a finance degree that maybe you can put to good use? I went to college, was supposed to be a dentist. And physics and organic chemistry changed that path. I think it was the realization of having worked somewhere long enough to know that I didn't want to have to work for someone else, that I was looking for a more entrepreneurial career path. And the opportunity for financial planning offered that, to where I could basically have my own practice at that time. Started one of the biggest financial planning firms out there. There was a lot of positives learned from there, but also learned a lot of things that didn't really line up with my sense of belief, and knew that there were others out there that probably felt exactly the same way. So even though I learned a lot about the industry, I also began to learn that a lot of financial advisors are taught the industry by the vendors and wholesalers themselves, and came to the understanding that a lot of what we consider to be general consensus advice is really based on those techniques that are benefiting those that are teaching, not necessarily those that are investing in those products.
Welcome back to Arkansas Money Talk, brought to you by the team of Retire Path Wealth. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Dale and Mark, and today we are discussing about the fact that a lot has changed, times have changed. Are you prepared to successfully navigate to and through your retirement as a result? Well, the next thing up on our list about how times have changed is that we live in a DIY world, the do-it-yourselfers, and a lot of people out there are doing retirement planning on their own, have been doing it on their own. But the question is, should you really be doing it on your own? And that's what we're going to talk about next. And to set up today's conversation about this, there was a very eye-opening study that Vanguard did about the benefits of using a financial advisor. So would you be able to comment and share a little bit about that study and what it showed?
Yeah, Kristen, the one thing that really stood out to me was the fact that this study showed that the difference between a person that did everything on their own by choosing their own allocation, the amount that they contribute, how they made their contributions, whether they were Roth or they were pre-tax or they were possibly after-tax contributions, that over a 25-year time frame, the outcome is a 50% increase in assets for the individuals that used professional assistance as opposed to those that did not.
50%, and that included the fees that they paid that professional,
That is 100% correct.
Yep.
And again, that's a huge issue for us in our industry, and our industry's done such a poor job of this, is that so many times we have clients and they come in and they're so focused on fee. Fee. And the idea is, yes, that is important, but it is literally not the most important aspect. Outcome is your most important aspect. Again, we'll have people come in and they've used a traditional money manager in the past, and then they'll want to compare fee structure from a traditional money manager to a comprehensive financial planner, who's someone who's taking care of their tax bill for them, that's helping them plan for taxes and plan for Social Security and plan for their Medicare. I mean, just for one instance, and I know this isn't the topic we're talking about, but Mark was able to save a family a minimum of $14,000 a year for the rest of their life.
Wow.
Just by helping them to understand how a simple filing strategy worked on Medicare.
Yeah.
And you can't calculate, those aren't even calculated into these outcomes.
Right. And I think that really speaks to the fact of you don't know what you don't know, right? And in my experience and work as a financial educator, I've seen firsthand the value of getting an independent, objective, third-party perspective of your situation. Because a lot of times we're too close to our own stuff to be able to see the forest through the trees. And there's consequences, right? If you don't know, for example, with that example perfectly there, right there, they weren't aware of IRMA, right? That income-related monthly adjustment amount. They had no idea how making decisions over here was going to negatively impact them in this area of their financial life. And I think the other really fascinating thing that stood out to me about this Vanguard study is Vanguard is one of the world's largest money managers, predominantly used by do-it-yourself investors.
That's right. That's exactly.
And they even came up with this, the findings showed that someone who worked with a financial advisor ended up with more. And a lot of it wasn't just the investment returns, but it was the overall value that a financial advisor can provide. So can you touch on that?
Yeah, that's something that we really, and value is an important word in our office. When people come in to see us, what we try to determine in our first couple of meetings is if we can add any value to your situation. If we can't show you value, then you probably shouldn't work with us. If we can't do something that's actually going to benefit you, not just in your investment return, although that may happen, but that we're going to take care of things for you regarding your Social Security optimization strategies and actually putting that together as a plan, and it's going to be integrated into everything else we do in your income planning. We'll help you, if you still are lucky enough to have a pension benefit, help you not only determine what's the best way to take your pension benefit, but also how that's going to work together with everything else, and fill out the paperwork for you. Can't tell you how many people we filled out pension paperwork for, and we do it almost on a weekly basis in our office. It's helping with Medicare planning and filing all of the paperwork, especially people that work past age 65 that are filing for Medicare. There's additional forms that people don't know that are needed. If there's a life-changing event, if they do have an IRMA, they do have an income related monthly adjustment amount on their Medicare, how do you get that reduced? Because you might have had a life-changing event. What forms need to be filled out and process and what needs to go in with all of that. That's something, those are all the value added that we do that we think makes whatever fee is being charged, worth it.
Right.
Well, not only that, but then speeding up the process for the implementation of putting into place an estate plan. We've built strategic alliance with other professionals, not only to reduce the cost of those services, but to speed up the process within which they can be implemented.
Right, for sure. And I'm sure that this family that you're helping to save $14,000 per year for the rest of their lives, they think the value's worth it, right?
I think so.
For sure. Well, I think what's interesting, the same Vanguard study also showed that currently only around 38% of Americans work with a financial advisor. And I think part of the reason is there's a lot of misconceptions out there about what it's like to work with professionals such as yourselves. I think some people think, well, I don't want to pay a fee for something that I can quote unquote do on my own. Right. But as we're saying, there's lots of mistakes that are often made in the absence of working with professionals like yourselves.
Well, not just that, Kristen, but I think also there's a common misconception that, I don't have enough money. Or they're going to have some kind of a minimum, or there's going to be this other scenario that comes in. Folks, first thing I want to do is put your mind at ease. We don't have minimums. We don't have criteria that we set in place that says, hey, we're not going to offer assistance out to you. As Mark said, you may, through the process, find out that there's not, at least in your opinion, a perception there. But the other reason that we make the first two steps of this process completely complementary is to remove that apprehension of, oh my gosh, there's a gotcha on the back end of this thing.
Right. Yes. People value transparency, and I know that I myself, I don't mind paying for something if there's value in it, right? And you do such a great job of demonstrating that value. And I know you have an awesome graphic you want to share with our viewers that kind of explains everything that you're able to do for people. So do you want to walk us through?
Absolutely. Yeah, if we can get that up there real quick. And so basically, this is what we call our circle of service. Certified Financial Planner Board has kind of their 5 pillars. We've expanded it a little bit past that a little bit. But the importance is it doesn't matter what your current concern for where you're entering this circle today, whether it's in the income planning process, the investment plan, tax plan, healthcare plan, legacy plan, protection plan, where it fits in, we're going to make sure that we work our way all the way around those. And it's really interesting. One of the things that people often find out, just because of something that you mentioned earlier, is not just that they don't work with a financial professional, but they find out as they get closer to retirement that they're not working with the appropriate financial planner for their stage of their life, because most people are in that upper kind of middle green quadrant that says investment plan. And there's about 70% of, quote, financial planners out there. That is the only quadrant that they're working in.
Yes.
You ask questions about the other 5, and they go, oh, that's off limits to us. That's not my area. That's not my specialty. We're going to refer you to someone else who now you get to go start that process all over again.
Right.
By working through those questions. That other professional may be perfectly suited to answer your question, again, in that little individual silo, but they don't have any understanding as to how it works with the rest of your plan that you have in place.
Right. Well, let's face it, it's easy to manage this on your own when the markets are doing well, right? When markets are going up and you're just focusing on the investment management piece, but it requires a different skill set, a different perspective, and different tools to be able to successfully do all these other areas of planning that when it comes time to retire, I mean, this is where you all really shine. I know that you've had a lot of conversations where folks have come in and they've said, I've been working with someone else, or I've been doing it on my own. I've never learned or heard of some of these terms. I've never known any of this stuff, right?
Right, that's exactly right. There's so much more to retirement planning than just the accumulation of wealth and the growth of your assets. If you're not having these conversations about your Social Security maximization, and you don't even, that's not a conversation that's come up. If your current advisor, or you have no idea because you're doing it on your own, you haven't been looking at taxes and how taxes affect your retirement planning, and that's a conversation that you haven't had or haven't looked into, I really encourage you to pick up the phone, scan the QR code, schedule a time to come in with us, get that 30,000-foot view of where you are. Most everyone that comes in our office, what we hear from them as they're leaving and they've gone through the process is this, hey, I feel so much better. I have a sense of clarity about where I am today.
For sure. Well, and I think for a lot of folks who have done it themselves, there comes a time where you actually want to be able to relax and enjoy your retirement, right? And so we know that some of you watching, you might have done a really good job up to this point, but it's time to transition the reins to someone who can trust, who is independent, who's a fiduciary, who has that legal and ethical obligation to always serve your best interests. And the team of Retire Path Wealth would love to be able to show you the kind of value they can provide for you through the form of a complimentary written income plan. To claim yours, simply call 866-724-3893. Or again, if you'd rather connect online, simply click that QR code and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back with more right after this.
A retirement income planner isn't just a professional resource. They are your advocate, your strategist, and your guide on a journey to a successful retirement. At Retire Path Wealth, we work with families just like yours to customize strategies based on your unique goals, your risk tolerance, and your life stage to ensure your retirement plan aligns with your aspirations. Hi, I'm Dale Callclaser, Certified Financial Planner. If you are searching for a fulfilling retirement and confidence in your financial future, give us a call and learn more about how we can help.
We've all seen the headlines. Celebrities passing away without a clear estate plan, leaving their families tangled in legal battles. Celebrities like Prince, Aretha Franklin, and even Ted Williams have all made this mistake. But these issues don't just affect the rich and famous. Without a plan, your assets could be stuck in probate, costing your loved ones in time, money, and stress. Estate planning isn't just about avoiding mistakes, it's about making sure your legacy is protected. Contact us now to see how we can help. Don't leave your legacy to chance.
Welcome back to Arkansas Money Talk, where today we've been discussing the fact that times have changed and we want you to be prepared to navigate those changing times. We did mention earlier in the show that for a lot of folks, pensions are a thing of the past, but you all work with a lot of folks here in Arkansas who do still have pensions. In fact, you mentioned in the last segment, a lot of what you're doing week in, week out is helping folks fill out pension paperwork. So let's touch on that, because obviously there's some key decisions that need to be made when it comes to taking a pension. How do you help folks optimize their pension income?
Well, we sit down and we're doing the same income planning we would do with anyone else. We're trying to help them determine, depending on what other assets they have, if they're being offered a lump sum or they've got pension options, whether it's life only, when it's just based on them, or they can have survivor benefits. Which selection actually fits their goals and objectives and fits into their plan. Because someone who has a lot of other assets, has large Social Security benefits on top of that, may be able to take a lump sum, and maybe they want to for legacy planning and to leave to their other generations down the road. But if someone is really dependent on that income and they need to have that predictable income, going the pension route may be in their best the best option for them in their situation. We don't know until we actually do the planning. We tell people every day that if you come in and you bring us nothing into the office, and you ask us to give you advice about what to do with this lump sum when we don't know how it's invested, we don't know what your risk tolerances are, we don't know what your goals and objectives are, it'd be like you went to the doctor and said, "Hey doc, what's wrong with me?" Right, exactly, without giving any kind of indication, symptoms, any information, right? That's right. Yeah. Well, talk a little bit about how important it is for married couples to do this pension income planning together, because I've heard some devastating stories of folks who weren't on the same page, didn't know, one spouse passes away prematurely, the pension's gone. So talk a little bit about that process.
Well, Kristen, again, I'm going to refer back to the retirement income planning process, is because if the pension is there, that is a source of either potential income or a potential asset if it does have a lump sum option. And it really is not down to, hey, what did Joe do with his? It's what fits for me. Because again, it comes down to Social Security benefits as well and what other sources of income are in place. What other assets I have. And so it is a comprehensive conversation in every aspect. Again, I'm going to say it again. We don't answer questions in silos because that is, in our opinion, malpractice. To go back to the same doctor illustration here, we've got to assess the patient by figuring out not only, how much money can I generate, but how much money do I need to generate.
Right.
So let's say, for example, just to give a perfect scenario, I've got a couple that's lived very frugally. They need $3,000 a month is all they need for living expenses, and their Social Security benefits will adequately cover that. Then maybe the need for additional money from a pension only creates an additional tax burden for them. And so the idea of then taking a lump sum and that we can then distribute money as we so choose makes more sense. Or maybe it's a combination of the two. And so really it comes down to this solving goals or solving needs for outcomes to make that pension calculation fit in. And again, there's no right or wrong answer in most cases. As Mark said, sometimes there's an instance where there's no other choice. I don't have other sources of income. And so I need this pension to be in place forever so that I don't run out of money.
Right. And for folks who are watching today who don't have a pension, I know that one of the things you're able to do is help set up a personal pension of sorts, right?
Well, the beauty is, again, we keep talking about retirement income planning. Folks, I'm going to drive that point home all day long. Every show we ever do is this is not retirement planning. It is retirement income planning. It is making the point to where the idea is for the rest of my life, I've got to have income that meets my monthly need on a predictable basis that I'm most likely not to run out. That's what we're going to focus on continuously. Some people like the idea of having liquid assets. Some people like the idea of having guaranteed income. Most people really like both.
Right. Yes.
I hear it all the time. People come in and goes, oh my God, you're going to use that word annuity on me now, aren't you? And it's like, you know what? Do you like your Social Security? Oh, we love it. It's an annuity. Annuities are not bad things. It is the most predictable way to guarantee income in the future, though. And so we do. Yes, there are products and solutions out there where we can guarantee a personal pension that'll live as long as I do, that may live as long as myself and my spouse do. Some of those pensions, personal pensions, can even double for long-term care need in the future. So folks, it's really about answering income questions for yourself. Do you have a plan in place to make sure that you have predictable income you can't outlive? If you don't, call us now.
Wonderful. Dale, Mark, thank you so much. Again, this is for no cost, no charge, no obligation. We invite you to pick up the phone and schedule your time to come in and receive your very own complimentary written income plan. 866-724-3893 is the number to call. We love you, Arkansas. We'll see you next time here on Arkansas Money Talk.